Greetings, fellow dungeon delvers, and welcome to Dorans and Dragons, where we work together to come up with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition builds for your favorite League of Legends champions. Today we're building Malzahar, the Prophet of the Void. Malzahar is a Shuriman with the gift of foresight. This gift was both a blessing and a curse, however. Though he knew the future of others, he cannot use his gifts on himself to discern his fate. The disparity of wealth in his city and the never-ending cycle of pain that resulted from it broke Malzahar's spirit, and he fled this city in search of meaning. He found that meaning in the ruined city of Acathia with the Void. Through them, all the suffering would end. Everything would end in holy oblivion, thanks to the Void, and there would be peace. He emerged from Acathia a changed man, empowered by the Void to spread their promise of peace and to prime the world for their arrival. Before we get started with the build, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button so you're always notified when we release our builds. We'd like to take a minute and thank our awesome patrons over on Patreon who support us every month. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on and for stalling Oblivion. If you like our videos and want to support the channel, come join us over on Patreon today for just $1 to get access to our awesome Discord community where we talk League and D&D all day long. We also created a Warlock patron named The Void for our homebrew release called Denizens of the Void, which is a much more straightforward version of Malzahar if you're interested. The homebrew is linked down below in the DM's Guild page. Alright, now let's get into it. Here's a quick preview of the build. For race, we're going with Variant Human. Per usual, our stats are going to be determined using the standard array. For our stat priorities, we're going to max Charisma and dump Strength. We do have a multi-class requirement of 13 in Charisma though. Our leveling path is going to be levels 1 through 8 in Sorcerer, then over to Warlock for 6 levels, and then we'll finish off the build with 6 more levels in Sorcerer. Mal's passive, Void Shift, is going to be Entropic Ward. Our Q, Call of the Void, is going to come from Wall of Light. His W, Void Swarm, will come from Summon Lesser Demons. Our E, Malefic Visions, can either be Witch Bolt or Mind Spike. And finally, we get our ultimate, Nether Grasp, from Mental Prison, or Rolitham's Psychic Lance. For race, we're going with Variant Human. Variant Humans gain a +1 to 2 ability scores. We'll take Charisma and Dexterity. We'll also gain Proficiency in Persuasion, so we can hype up the Void to all the people we encounter. Variant Humans also gain a free feat, so we'll take Warcaster. Mainly, this will give us advantage on our concentration checks, and allow us to cast spells for opportunity hacks instead of just regular attacks. For background, we're going with Acolyte, which feels perfect for the Prophet of the Void. This is going to give us proficiency on Insight and Religion, and the Shelter of the Faithful feature. Basically, any temple or house of worship that focuses on the Void will welcome you with open arms and provide you with food and shelter. For stats, we're going to truly embrace the Void with the standard array. Roll if you want to, just keep at least a 13 in Charisma so we can multi-class properly. Speaking of, we need to convert as many people to Voidianity as we can, so we'll max our Charisma first. We'll take Dexterity next for our snap decision making, so we can flash ult when that silly ADC steps too far forward. Next is going to be Constitution for a little bit of extra health and for the hardiness of Void Exposure has given us. Our Intelligence is going to be average at a 12. We'll keep average Wisdom at 10, and then we'll dump Strength since we skip leg day every day by floating around everywhere. For our equipment, we'll take a nice suit of leather armor and make it purple and blue. And of course, we can't forget Mal's super important ceremonial dagger that I literally have never seen him use. But hey, it's still super cool and pretty important. Alrighty, let's kick things off with some levels in Sorcerer. Sorcerers have a d6 hit die and proficiency with daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. We're also going to start with skill proficiency in Intimidation and Deception for some even more culty shenanigans with the Void. First level sorcerers unlock their sorceress origin. We're going to get our Void on with the Aberrant Mind. This is going to give us some psionic spells and the telepathic speech feature. Telepathic speech is going to let us whisper thoughts of the Void into the minds of your potential recruits. As a bonus action, you can form a telepathic connection to a creature within 30 feet for as many minutes as you have sorcerer levels, and it'll hold a distance equal to your charisma mod in miles. You can only have one super secret telepathic pen pal at one time, and the connection will drop if you get incapped or die. We're also going to learn first level spells. We're going to get the damage over time version of our E with Witch Bolt, which will flavor as a synaptic lightning essentially. You make a ranged spell attack roll and deal 1d12 lightning damage on a hit, and maintain a connection to the target for a minute. During any of your next turns, you can use your action to deal an additional 1d12 lightning damage. As long as you keep using this action, you'll keep dealing the damage guaranteed. We'll help you weaponize your bonus action in a few levels so you can keep casting even when you use this as your action. Second level sorcerers gain Font of Magic. This gives you a pool of sorcery points to use to better manipulate your psychic magic. Right now you can only convert sorcery points to spell slots or vice versa, but next level will gain the ability to really put them to work. Level 3 sorcerers gain Meta Magic, which is a set of options to enhance your spells using sorcery points. The main meta magic option we're going to use for Malzahar is Quicken Spell, which will allow us to spend 2 sorcery points to turn any action-based spell into a bonus action spell instead. This means we can keep our E ticking strong while still slamming your enemies with even more damage. We'll also learn second level spells here, giving us the more flavor-specific version of our E with Mind Spike. You reach into the mind of a creature and force a wisdom save on it. If it fails, it takes 3d8 psychic damage, and you'll always know where they are unless they plane shift away. This is much closer to the Malefic Visions, but I also really like the damage over time component of Witch Bolt. So what I would recommend is quickening Mind Spike to cast as your bonus action, then using your action to cast Witch Bolt, and use your subsequent turn actions to keep the pain rolling. 4th level sorcerers gain the first ability score improvement of the build. As always, we're going to lay out all of their ASIs so you can pick and choose at your leisure. We're not really going to need any feats, so we can work on bringing those stats up nice and high. For sorcerer levels 4 and 8, we're going to max our charisma with 2 points at each level. For warlock level 4, we'll round off our dexterity and constitution with a point each. And finally at sorcerer 12, we'll bump our dex mod up with 2 points as well. 6th level aberrant mind sorcerers pick up psionic sorcery and psychic defenses. Psionic sorcery is going to let us use our sorcery points to cast sneakier version of our psionic spells, making them not require any components, verbal, somatic, or material, or otherwise. Psychic defenses is going to give us resistance to psychic damage and an advantage against being charmed or frightened. Level 7 sorcerers gain 4th level spells. We're going to show off the first version of our ult by reaching into the Unearthed Arcana for Rolatham Psychic Lance. I guarantee this is going to take 4 takes for me to pronounce this correctly. Actually, only 3. Way to go, me. This is another one of those perfect match spells, like Steel Wind Strike for Yi, so I'm just going to straight read its description. You unleash a shimmering lance of psychic power from your forehead at a creature. Okay, ideally it'd be eyes, but this is a very minor gripe. The target has to succeed on an intelligence saving throw, which they'll definitely fail, especially if you're playing in normals. If they fail, they take 10d6 psychic damage and are incapacitated until the start of your next turn. Don't worry though, we'll get a non-Unearthed Arcana version of our ult, but this one is definitely best. And since we covered Sorcerer 8 with our ASI discussion, we'll swap over to Warlock for a few levels to pick up our passive and Voidlings. Warlocks have a d8 hit die and give us proficiency with light armor and all simple weapons. We're also going to keep the Eldritch Horror vibes of Aberrant Mind as the Void, going with the Great Old One as our otherworldly patron. This is going to give us another expanded spell list, and the Awakened Mind feature. Although it's essentially the same as our Telepathic Speech feature, so we don't need to go over it again. 2nd level Warlocks gain their Eldritch Invocations, which are basically just the devs' attempt at making up for the packed spell slot system. The only 2 we need to focus on are Armor of Shadows and Investment of the Chainmaster. Armor of Shadows is going to let us cast Mage Armor on ourselves freely, which will bring our AC up to 17 by max level. Investment of the Chainmaster will buff the Voidling we're going to get next level. Our Pact of the Chain Familiar, spoilers, will either gain a flying speed or swimming speed. We'll be able to use our bonus action to make it attack, and those attacks are magical for overcoming resistances and immunities to non-magical attacks and whatnot. And if it gets attacked, we can burn our reaction to give it resistance to that attack's damage. Level 3 Warlocks gain their Pact boon. We spoiled it last level, as we usually do, but we're going with Pact of the Chain. This is going to let you cast the Find Familiar spell as a ritual and give you 4 special forms: the Imp, Pseudo-Dragon, Quasit, or Sprite. I would recommend choosing the Quasit and reflavoring it as a Voidling with your DM. Level 5 Warlocks learn 3rd level spells. We're going to pick up our W with Summon Lesser Demons, and again, flavor them as Voidlings. You roll a d6 to determine how many and of what CR the demons are. These guys are a little chaotic though, and will go after the closest non-demons, so stay in the circle you create to cast in Keep yourself safe, and try to summon them behind your enemies so they have to beat them before they can come to you and your friends. For our final level in Warlock, we gain the Entropic Ward feature. Whenever a creature makes an attack roll, spell or weapon based, you can use a reaction to impose disadvantage on that roll. If the attack misses, your next attack roll has advantage, meaning a guaranteed Witch Bolt right to the chin. And we're back to Sorcerer 9 to learn 5th level spells. Wall of Light is going to be our cue. You create a 60-foot long wall of bright purple light, 10 feet high and 5 feet thick. When you cast it, anyone in the area of the wall has to make a con save or take 48 radiant damage and be blind for a minute. Also, if you end your turn on the wall space, you take 48 radiant, no save. You can also use your action, like Witch Bolt, to keep casting 48 radiant damage beams. That kind of breaks it from Mal's, so I wouldn't. Level 11 sorcerers learn 6th level spells. We're going to pick up the closest published version of our ultimate with Mental Prison. You're going to lock a creature into a mental cage of emotion and voidiness, forcing an intelligence save on them. If they fail, they take 5d10 psychic damage and are locked into a void-like prison. If they move from this prison, or are moved, they take 10d10 psychic damage and the spell ends. Not as good as Rolitham's Psychic Lance, but still pretty good. Now for our final level in Sorcerer, we gain Revelation and Flesh, which is going to let us transform and gain some features based on how many sorcery points we spend. I would reflavor the flavor text they provide here, as it's more HP Lovecraft than we really want. But you can see all invisible creatures within 60 feet, we can hover and gain a flying speed equal to our walking speed, we can swim twice our walking speed and breathe underwater, or we can become ooey gooey and slip through 1-inch spaces and escape grapples and non-magical restraints. This transformation lasts for 10 minutes and can be recast as long as you have sorcery points. Alright, now that we've completed the build, let's see how we did. First, the good. We got the Void at our side, with several psychic abilities and very powerful psychic damage spells. We also have our little chittering voidlings by our side to cause mayhem with us. Now the bad. I actually don't have any complaints with this build, other than our Q isn't the best, and as expected, we're a little squishy from all of our levels in Sorcerer. But what did you think? I've included a link to this build via D&D Beyond in the description below, as well as Amazon links to the books used in the build. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We have a few awesome rewards, and you get access to our great Discord community. We plan on churning out one League Champion build every week. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you on the Rift, or in the Forgotten Realms.